After a while, he looks into my window and I try to hide. Warning, disturbing content, viewer discretion is advised. What's the creepiest or most unexplainable thing you've ever seen that you haven't shared anywhere? Serious. Back in 2016, my mother was staying at my place because my father was in the hospital at the time and my apartment was right next to the hospital. One night I had this dream that the landline rings and my mother answers the phone and hears the news that my dad has passed away. She hangs up the phone and tells me that my uncle, a doctor at the hospital my father was in, just gave her the news of my father's passing. I wake up startled. I have a drink of water, and just as I start feeling relieved that this was all just a bad dream, the phone rings and my mom picks it up. I was just watching her from a distance, noticing the expression on her face, noticing the tears that started dripping down her cheek, and she hangs up the phone and tells me that my uncle just told her that my father has passed away. This is the only unexplained thing that ever happened to me, and this is the first time I share this with anybody. Rescued a blue tick coonhound that had bad anxiety when we left, so he had to be created. I went to the grocery store with the wife and 2 young kids and left the dog in the crate. When we got back, the dog was out of the crate, but the crate was completely closed and latched. There was no apparent way it could have happened. We problem solved it for the entire day and couldn't figure out how he did it. I called him Blue Dini after that. His unmatched escape skills continued though. He could open doors. No fence could hold him in, the dog simply climbed fences. We ended up rehoming him for his own safety. He actually wound up as a farm dog, which I'm sure was his best home. I got recalled into work and was driving at about 3 a.m. I was in a very rural area in western Washington. As I come around a curve, I see a woman in a nightgown on the side of the road looking up at a steep embankment. Just standing there staring away from the road. There are no homes nearby, not for miles. I call 911 and pull over about a minute up the road, not knowing what to think. Deputy showed up, couldn't locate anyone, and was as dumbfounded as I was. My father died when I was 15. In my freshman year of college, I and my roommate in the dorms were somewhat close but really had only been known each other for a month when the creepy thing happened. I hadn't told her much about my childhood, but she knew that my father had passed. One day she woke me up and asked me, "Did your father used to call you, insert silly childhood nickname here?" I hadn't heard that name since I was 6 or 7. I definitely never told her that he used to call me that, as it was a repressed memory that I hadn't thought about in a long time. Anyway, as it turned out, she had a dream that my father had come to her and asked her to take care of me, calling me by this silly childhood nickname. It was always difficult for me that my father never saw me graduate high school or start college. But I guess he did, from wherever he is now. I was 10 years old riding my bicycle at dusk along the road I lived on, which was parallel to a set of railroad tracks. I moved off the road as a car sped by and a beer bottle came sailing at me from the front passenger seat. I could see 2 young women turned around laughing at me through the back window. I flipped them off and kept riding. About 30 seconds later, I heard the train slam into them. When I was about 9, in the 1970s, I was playing football in the street. A bus came along, so I jumped up on the pavement. As it passed, I noticed my aunt and she smiled and waved to me. When the bus had gone, I carried on playing. I went home several hours later to find my aunt had died the previous evening. When I was about 11 or 12 years old, I went with my friend and my younger brother to play football in a park that was in a pretty remote place, so there were never many people. Basically, 3 or 4 people came dressed in like Victorian-style clothes, set up a box underneath a tree with big branches, tied a rope around it. One of them stood there with this noose around his neck, and then his friend kicked the box so he was hanging. They took turns doing this, and we left. It was super weird thinking back to it, and I have to check with my brother whenever I think about it to make sure it actually happened. In my mother's house, the basement light would turn on while we were away, and even if it was turned off before we left, it was somehow back on when we got back. Once I went downstairs and was like, "Hey Mr. Ghost Man, this is not good for the bills, could you PLS chill it with the lights? Yes, I know it's dark down here, okay thanks." The lights stayed off. My dorm hall had some weird shit happen, but one of the weirdest was that I went to the bathroom to wash my face and brush my teeth. The sink was right next to the entrance, and as I washed my face, I saw and heard the door open and noticed a figure move to the end of the stalls. I figured a girl had just come in to use the bathroom. I dry off my face and begin brushing my teeth but realized I didn't hear anyone else. I checked each stall and no one was in there. I quickly grabbed my stuff and noped out. I was working in a retail store in a pretty sketchy area. There was this lady who was obviously a heavy drug user or ex-drug user. She must have been in her 50s or 60s. She was notorious on my block for being crazy, but she'd visit me all the time and told me she thought I was cute. It was really bizarre cause she looked like a crackhead, but she'd act like a teenage girl around me. I tried to be nice to her cause she was known for being volatile. Anyway, on Christmas Eve she packed an entire Christmas dinner which she told me was all home-cooked Guyanese food and a cologne set. As she was leaving she just squats down on the floor and throws her hand up and starts cackling. Yes, cackling which faded to a giggle. Never saw her again. I was in my final year at uni, and I worked as a TA for a language professor. This meant teaching 1-hour sessions multiple times a week. I basically lived in the, known to be haunted, humanities building. On Tuesday after my final class and before my first lesson of the evening, I was in the staff room heating up my shitty microwave dinner. A woman I had never seen before came in, obligatory "Ope, let me just scooch past ya," and check the time on the coffee machine. Now I found it odd that this university employee came here just to check the time on the coffee machine. You don't have a phone/computer/watch/clock? But who am I in my lean cuisine to judge? She looks at the time on the coffee machine and says, "That can't be right. What time is it?" Me, it's 5:37. Her, 5 minutes fast. Okay. With that she left, and although a bit odd, I didn't dwell on the interaction. That is until 1 week later, Tuesday evening, I was again heating up my food when she enters, obligatory "Ope, let me just scooch past ya and check the time." That can't be right. What time is it? I look at my phone. It is exactly 5:37. I tell her and once again she says 5 minutes fast. Okay, and leaves. I am deeply unsettled. The microwave dings. I take my lean cuisine and quickly head upstairs. Never saw that woman again. I was probably 18 years old and was driving at night to see a friend. This mankind jumped in front of the car to make me stop. He honestly looked crazy. I slowed down the car to almost stop and he moved to talk to me, I think through the window. But I just drove off once he got out of the way. I was so creeped out. I never told anyone because I felt guilty that I didn't help him. It's been almost 10 years and I still don't have anything that's somewhat close to an explanation what happened then. My bestie and I were sleeping over at her grandma's house and enjoying the newly renovated attic as it was supposed to become her little teenager apartment. All new furniture with a huge comfy couch and nice clean boards screwed to the wall, all in white pink. The sleepover went just like you would imagine it, with two 15-year-old girls painting nails, watching DVDs and talking about the hottest gossip at school. It was already like 3 a.m. when we decided to go get some sleep and left the room to sleep in the bed next door. Only a few minutes later we heard a little scratching sound followed by a loud bang, clearly coming from the room we just left. One of the boards that were screwed to the wall was lying on the floor. Almost 4 meters away from where it was supposed to be. Not like screw broke and it fell. Nope. Solid 4 meters away from that wall. Almost 2 centimeters deep hole in the ground where the board was laying. The holes in the wall looked like something grabbed that board and pulled it straight out, ripping the wood and concrete it was drilled to. Still getting goosebumps remembering it. Here is a creepy/weird story. During a road trip from NJ to NC, my friend and I decided we were hungry and went looking for food in a town in Maryland. I don't remember the name of the town, but it felt very strange as soon as we pulled onto the main road, as there didn't seem to be many people out and about. It was the middle of the day, but no one was walking around. There weren't any restaurant food options other than a pizza place, so we pulled up and parked in front of the pizza place. It seemed like everyone in the town must have gone to that pizza place. When we parked the car, everyone in the restaurant turned and looked at our car through the big glass windows. Like, at the same time. They stared at us, we stared at them. It felt so weird that I said, "I don't want to go in there." My friend just nodded at me wide-eyed, and we drove to another town for lunch. Why was seemingly the whole town in that pizza place? What was with the staring? I'm almost a little sorry we didn't go in to find out, but at the same time not sorry at all. I just wanted to do a quick edit because I want to answer everyone's questions. As much as I would like to address them individually, I don't think I will be able. I wish I knew the name of the town. I think I never actually knew it. This story takes place 20 years ago. Google wasn't a thing. I think I had a beeper. I was new to driving, so using a paper map, my equally young and inexperienced in travel friend and I drove through the western part of Maryland to avoid major cities en route to Asheville, North Carolina. After reading everyone's comments, I agree we probably stumbled on a small town party or a very busy lunch hour. It just felt so scary to us at the time. I agree it seems Lovecrafting/Stephen King-esque. I also hope we weren't going to be on the next day's menu. No, we were two 16 and 17 years old white girls with dark brown hair. This was midday, I was driving, no headlights. I hope this answers everyone's questions. I'm going to go enjoy Friday night as best as I can, with some Moscow mules, and hope everyone is staying safe. I was in bed at night, woken up by the sound of steps on my roof tiling. I think I was about 13 at the time. I see a shadow walk past my skylight, unsure of what it was. I look outside my side window and see a man dressed in all black looking out from the construction scaffolding. After a while, he looks into my window and I try to hide. My brother also saw him. We never found out what happened to him, but the police were informed. When I was a kid, I was playing in our kitchen when I saw a huge dark figure walk past the kitchen and down the hallway leading to the bedrooms. I walked to our back patio and saw the rest of my family watching TV. The patio is on the opposite side of the house from the hallway. I walked to the hallway and started looking for whom it could have been, but never found anyone. Still have no idea who or what it could have been, but it always creeped me out thinking about it. Mine's pretty minor. I was awake one summer night with my window wide open to try to cool my room, and I heard this gigantic droning sound appear out of nowhere and remained for a few minutes. Sounded like it was coming from just outside my window above the road. It was one of the loudest sounds I've ever heard. Didn't sound like a helicopter, there wasn't that chop of blades in the air, and once it had stayed for a few minutes, it faded away, like it was going up into the air. Never heard anything like it since. When I was 5, I and my identical twin sister both caught scarlet fever. We are from America, but my dad's project had temporarily relocated us to India, and we were not used to the water and food there. We both fell into a coma towards the end of the fever. One day I woke up to my mom and aunt screaming and crying and holding my sister because she was unresponsive and not breathing. They were doing chest compressions, CPR, etc., but nothing was working. I was desperately trying to get their attention because I was young and didn't understand what was going on. I went back to my room to go back to sleep, but in the corner of the room where my sister's bed was, I saw her lying there, breathing fine. I went back out to the living room and realized I was looking at myself in my mom's arms as she tried to revive me. Eventually, I saw my eyes flicker open, and then everything went dark. I woke up a few weeks later in the hospital next to my sister and mom, who ended up catching it because of us. My mom told me I had almost died and they were trying to wake me up, but I was unresponsive, so the ambulance took all 3 of us into the ICU. To this day, I am still unsure of how I witnessed my almost death. My father was my grandmother's favorite child out of 6, partially because he was by far the youngest out of 10 children. She nicknamed him Little Mountain, as the last character in his Chinese name was, or Mountain. I remember going to her funeral when she passed, and we were burning paper money for her to use in the afterlife, a Taiwanese/Chinese tradition. I vividly remember watching my dad picking up a scrap of half-burnt money and making a sort of strangled noise. It was burnt in such a way that it resembled the character, even down to the middle prong being longer than the other 2. I'm seriously not religious, or superstitious, but that was probably the closest I ever got to believe in the supernatural, or at least ghosts. When my daughter was very young, 3 to 4, we were on a family vacation in a state park lodge. Our room had exposed wood ceiling beams to match the decor, important later. It was supposed to be nap time for my daughter, but she was quietly playing by herself and just chatting away, and the wife and I were reading on the other bed. Out of the blue, my daughter turns to me and asks for a piece of rope. I asked why she needed the rope and she nonchalantly replies, "It is for my friend, the purple girl on the ceiling." My wife asks, "What friend?" And my daughter responds, I've been talking with the little purple girl hanging from that wood up there, points to the ceiling beam. She asked me for another piece of rope. Needless to say that nap time was over and we quickly exited the room. I laid down to sleep one night. It always took me forever to fall asleep, as I'd have to breathe deeply for an hour to relax enough to drop off. A few minutes after I got into bed, the door to my room flew open with a bang. I heard something quite large and noisy stomp around the open area of my room, even felt a breeze that ruffled my hair, and then my door slammed shut and all was quiet. I was paralyzed with fear for a long time. Never got up to investigate due to sheer terror. No one else was home. Running through a large field in the middle of a nice neighborhood on Halloween night. Got gas sprinting halfway and reached out to hold on to a tiny tree, felt what I can only describe as claws like bugles on your fingertips wrap around my hand. Noped out and ran back to my group of friends. There were no leaves because it was falling, so I still have no clue what it was. Thank you for watching Reddit Space. Please subscribe if you love these Reddit stories.